Hi all. Thank you very much for joining the session. Staying safe, reimagine the security to mitigate the risk. The very curated session is brought to you by CloudSec in association with Entity NetMagic. Today I will take the liberty to introduce our eminent speaker first. Today we have Mr. Rishikesh Kamath, VP Managed Services and IMS Business with Entity NetMagic. And we have second speaker with us is Mr. Saurabh Isar, who is CEO CloudSec. Today's discussion will help you understand how can you manage your digital risk through continuous monitoring of the external environment. Before I invite Mr. Rishikesh Kamath, I want to call some house rules. So all participants are on mute by default, and moderator, which is me, will help drive conversation by passing all necessary controls to speakers. I'm sure during the session you will have a lot of questions coming in. Please post your question in Q&A window or a chat window by selecting send it to organizer only option. In case owing to the dearth of time, we still are unable to answer few of questions, we will ensure that we answer you via emails. So here on, I would request Mr. Kamath to come and present his perspective.
Thank you, Britesh. And very good afternoon to everyone. Very good afternoon to you, Saurabh. And so today we are going to have this interactive webinar where we are going to talk about how does one think about or look at monitoring from an external perspective. I'm going to have a quick slides to run through and to set the perspective, to set the context, and then we'll get cracking with the question and answers with Saurabh himself, right? So allow me a minute and I will be able to show my slides. Okay, just checking. I believe this should be visible. Saurabh, can you confirm for me?
Yes, we can see your slides, Rishi.
Okay, excellent. So, just a second. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I'm just having a bit of trouble out here. 1 minute. There we go. So, in today's digital transformation, it's basically technology that is driving change, right? The evolution of people, process, technology, the advent of cloud solutions, SaaS solutions, IoT solutions, right? And it has also given the opportunity for organizations to go and look at new markets, compete against established players, look at new business models, look at new revenue streams, right? And ultimately reach out to a whole different set of new customers. So technology is at the heart of driving all of this digital transformation change. But with the digital transformation has come a lot of cybersecurity risks or security challenges. And so we at Entity run this global threat intelligence report. We come out with this global threat intelligence report every year. And what you see on the screen right now are some quick snapshots or quick takeaways from the GTIR report 2020 of Entity. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of you will resonate with the points shown out here, where the adversaries continue to innovate and become stealthier in nature. There's a lot of weaponization happening on the IoT side. So IoT devices are becoming more and more weaponized. The governance, risk, and compliance continues to become more complex as the compliance demands increase. At the same time, old vulnerabilities continue to remain a prime target. So these are vulnerabilities that should have been patched by organizations and for which patches are already available by the OEMs, right? But they still continue to become a prime target. And these are the ones that are really weaponized much more easily than the so-called zero-day threats. Content management systems are heavily targeted, And technology-led industries are also heavily attacked, right? And one of the reasons technology industries are attacked is because they form the supply chain in a way to most other organizations, right? So like I said in the beginning, the technology is what is driving digital transformation, and if you can get, or if you can break into a technology organization, as what we've seen with some of the large IT providers in the past in India, that gives you a good inroad into their end customers environments, right? So defenders have their hands full in keeping their assets safe while complying with all the regulations. And so these were some of the key recommendations that came out of the NTT Global Threat Intelligence Report in 2020. First, we need to have an intelligence-driven security, which means that the approach needs to be more proactive. First of all, one needs to assume that you've already been breached. Then one needs to have a strategy in place to address the complexity, given the different heterogeneous environments that one is now onboarding and supporting, and of course have the right kind of threat intelligence capabilities to be able to identify who are the threats that are actually targeting your organization. Till date, many organizations have looked at threat intelligence from a generic blacklisting of IPs, URLs, domains, and IOCs and others, but it needs to be much more than that. It needs to be targeted specifically to the organization at hand, to your organization. And continuous monitoring. So this is something that would give the CXOs complete and comprehensive visibility into what's happening in their environment. Continuous monitoring of the external environment, and that's going to be one of the themes that we're going to talk about today. The external environment is as much important, if not more, than what you're doing internally in terms of monitoring the assets that the organization has, right? And integrated operations. So basically, many times attackers get through because one part of the organization does not know what the other is doing. Maybe the NOC and SOC are separate, and there's a lot of communication gap. So integrated operations is something that has come out as a key recommendation from the NTT report. Then secure by design, and by this what we mean is that the security that organizations apply should be aligned to business. It should be agile to change, and a very key example of change that we saw was 6 months back when the lockdown started, and organizations that had an agile business-driven security in place were able to respond to the work from home requirements in a secure manner much more quickly and much more efficiently than the ones that were not, right? So agility to change is very important, and that's one of the aspects in terms of what we mean by secure by design, right? And then automated response. So the ability to be able to respond and mitigate a particular threat or a series of threats in near real time or in near real time to make sure that the dwell time of the attacker is as little as possible and the damage that the attacker can do is restricted to a small amount. And finally, controls standardization. So this is where one should look at adopting frameworks and best practices. A good example of this is the MITRE ATT&CK framework, which is gaining in popularity. Similarly, many organizations today have started adopting the NIST cybersecurity framework and others of the like. And a repeatable response. So standardization also means that the response to a given nature of threat is repeatable in nature, which means that which draws us back to the automation or the automated response point, where automation helps in making sure that the response is repeatable and consistent with the policy of the organization, with the way we would want to respond, and not necessarily dependent on specific people. Looking forward, what the NTT report talks about is evolution of sophistication of malware capabilities. So that has been going on in the past, and that will continue. The sophistication of malware will continue to grow. The organizations will need to do additional reconnaissance to check compromise and propagation of IoT botnets, as many organizations today are now embarking upon having their own IoT landscape in place. So monitoring that becomes more and more important. Monitoring continuous deployment of spyware and keyloggers. So the increase, NTT report says or finds that there's going to be an increase in the deployment of spyware and keyloggers. And just like we as defenders are putting in automation efforts in defending the organization, even the attackers are increasing their efforts in automation. So even attackers are using and leveraging machine learning, artificial intelligence methods to find out what we are doing as defenders, and then to circumvent those defensive tactics that we have put in place. So the game has become much more faster. We are putting in controls, attackers are trying to circumvent them, and many times they succeed with that. So all this while you have to keep maintain a compliant stand with your regulators, and at the same time also make sure that the organization remains safe, right? So that's what we mean by saying that the organizations or the defenders have their hands full in defending organizations or defending their particular businesses, right? So that was just a quick and brief snapshot or an overview I wanted to give to before we start the question and answer. So with that, let me again welcome Saurabh. So good afternoon, Saurabh. Thank you so much for being
thanks.
part of.
Thanks a lot,
So I am going to now pass on the control to you. Just give me a minute.
Sure.
In the meanwhile, I would like to refresh the audience that if you have any questions, do put it in the chat window and direct it to the moderator, so that we can take a look at those questions at the end of this presentation. Okay, Saurabh, can you confirm if you are having the slides? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I got it.
Okay. So Saurabh, let me start by asking you this, first question. Many organizations today have a SOC or a internal security monitoring in place. Many organizations have already invested in a lot of tools to do a lot of internal monitoring. To maybe those are legacy solutions like IDSs, IPSs, or even new solutions like SIEM and analytics, right? So are such controls and monitoring solutions enough? And is it enough to look inwards and try to defend the organization, or does one need to be thinking beyond the boundaries of one's organization, and what threats lie beyond that?
No, great questions. First of all, can you hear me okay, Rishi?
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And I'm assuming you can see with the title slide.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. No, that's a great question. I think so. Let me kind of present some facts and data as a way to answer that question, right? So recently, for example, one of the articles which came out said that there are more than GitHub repositories contain secret keys. Secret keys means either a leaked credential or an API key or some proprietary source code, right? So one way to look at it is that's about 100,000 different companies whose keys to the kingdom are already available on GitHub, right? So that's the first point I kind of want all of you to keep in mind. And what is the impact of this? Well, if you look at the second data point, which is that almost 30% of breaches involve these stolen credentials, which means that people have figured out a way how to search those GitHub repository, for example, or a Pastebin, or a SourceForge, or dark web forum, or even a Twitter, or a LinkedIn or a Facebook, to look for those leaked credentials, right? And in fact, it goes back to the point you were making earlier, Rishi, about the attackers also using machine learning and AI to kind of find these needles in a haystack. So when you put these two together, the problem becomes serious. But now let me kind of elevate the problem a little bit more also. Now, what about, so just like you said, right? Companies, all the large companies, when we went down to lockdown recently, the larger companies were able to do a good job of securing everything, right? Shutting down their, strengthening their firewalls, opening up the environments in a careful way. What about their partners? What about the let's say the payroll partner of a large company? What about the telecom partner? What about the hiring partner? Those partners are usually much smaller. They also had to go to open up to enable and support work from home, but they were not able to do such a good job of hardening everything, right? And a huge spike in data leakage because of that, right? And now, why are we only talking about the company itself? What about your VIP users, for example, right? So VIP users have been another very big target for a lot of. So by VIP users, I mean your board members, I mean your CXO, your CEO, your CIO, and so on. Their credentials, their LinkedIn. We all saw what happened with Jeff Bezos. We all saw what happened with our Prime Minister Modi recently, right? So even those things are becoming a big risk for the companies. So now, to answer your
Okay.
question, there is definitely a need in the market to monitor all these. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So pretty much what I suspected, that a lot of these threats are now beyond the organization's boundaries. And while organizations continue to invest in those efforts and technologies to do the monitoring within the logical perimeter of the organization, what you're saying is that the number of data leaks, and for that matter, high-profile data leaks causing damages in the millions, are on the rise, right? So what? I mean,
Yes.
for the audience, what does it mean for their own organization? How does it impact them on their security coverage? Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. So very interesting, right? Very often I talk to prospects, and when I talk about this, they say, you know what, we are talking about something which is out there, which affects other companies. I have never seen anything like this. So then what I usually ask them is, Mr. Customer, have you ever been a victim of a wallet scam? Has your website ever been defaced? Have you ever had a credential leak, your board member getting hit by a credential leak? Have you ever had your source code getting leaked? Have you had a fake customer service number of yours being put up somewhere, right? Or have you been the victim of a phishing campaign, right? Or if you're a bank, have you ever had a credit card or a debit card leak, right? The moment I present this, right, almost all customers sit up, because invariably, almost all of them have faced one of these issues in the last few months and had no clue what to do about it, right? So they spent on their firewalls, on their DNS, on their SIM systems, and basically the castle becoming stronger. And still they were hit by all these issues, right? And this is the reason why you need that third party monitoring, right? Why you need the external monitoring, why you need the digital risk monitoring. So yeah.
Okay. All right. So what you have listed out there is a lot of things, right? I think that's a bit scary actually, in terms of the ways that a particular organization can get impacted, right? So this is a fairly large landscape of attack and threat surface to cover, right? And so how does one go about realistically solving this problem? Because again, at the risk of repeating myself, this seems fairly large and a number of things to take care of on a continuous basis, that too. Okay. So now I know that CloudSec's XVigil platform is gaining fast adoption in the market. How does that work, and how does that help solve these problems? And while you're
Sure.
answering that question, it would also help if you can probably give us some hands-on demo of the platform itself for the audience to look at.
Sure. Let me in fact do that. Okay. You can see the dashboard now, right? I hope.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So let me just see. Yeah, I've not been logged out yet. Okay. So this is the dashboard. Now what I'll do is, as I am walking through the demo, right, I'll try to address how the different use cases get kind of addressed, right? So the first question was, how do we for example, shadow IT. I'll tell you a very simple basic problem. Forget all the big things in the world. Most of the CISOs I talk to, if I ask them, can you confidently say that you have got 100% visibility of all the assets you're exposing outside? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no, right? So they don't know if their HR department exposed some server or port outside for accepting some CVs, some resumes, or if their marketing department opened some server to accept some campaign feedback, right? So the first thing which we do, if you look at this dashboard, right, this is what a customer sees. A few things to keep in mind. The first thing they would do is they'll go to asset management. Now, this is where they can put in their watchwords, right? So, for example, they can put Kotak, GeoMeet, HDFC, McKinsey, Reliance, whatever the keyword is, right? Based on this, the system then automatically goes and detects all the domains and subdomains. So the domains you can enter or it can detect. And then based on that, it detects all your subdomains, right? So this is all, if you can, just one second. Yeah, so if you can see, all of these subdomains have been added by the XVisual auto discovery model. And then corresponding to this, it just goes ahead and discovers all the IP addresses and so forth. So basically, it's like a spider which keeps on discovering all your external facing assets. Just this itself is such a big help when it comes to helping you with your shadow IT, for example. But then this is just the starting point, right? So you don't have to worry about, hey, I have to give all my assets to you. What if I forget an asset? No, you don't have to worry about it. The system will automatically discover it, right? And once we have done this, that's when the kind of the fun starts, right? So very similar to the 3 sets of use cases you saw in the earlier slide. So you have got a cyber threats monitor, you have got a brand monitor and infrastructure monitor, right? So so in continuation, what I explained, the system has 68 sensors to constantly check external facing footprint for any misconfigurations, any open ports, any misconfigured SSLs, and so on. Then you have the cyber threats. So let me give an example, right? Okay, let's go look at some code monitor. I remember I was talking about source code monitoring and those 100,000 things which have been leaked, 100,000 API keys which have been leaked on GitHub. So look at this. So now this is the view you will get. This is a by the way, okay, one quick disclaimer. This is a demo platform. Obviously, this is a public forum. We've got a lot of people on this call, so I have to be very careful with the data I'm showing here. This is all either publicly available or masked data. So none of this is confidential data, by the way. So you get this interface. You can detect, okay, where do you want to look for? What is the type of threat? So the system has already classified a set of things as threats. You can say, okay, what severity? So for example, right now it is showing you 10,740 results, right? You can say, okay, I only want to see high priority. The moment you do that, it will automatically, okay, so that 10,000 became 379. Now, let me pause here. Think about the impact of this one thing in the life of a CISO. So now the CISO does not have to look out, rather the CISO's team or the security organization don't have to look at 10,000 alerts at the same time. They just have to look at these 379 first, right? Just imagine the amount of time you save. What if one of these was the high ticket item and they wasted time looking at something which was lower priority, right? So that's exactly what you help them avoid. And so let's look at one of these, for example. Yeah, all of these are kind of GitHub links. So yeah, so for example, this is some source code which landed up on GitHub, right? Now this is the link. This is the all the code here. You can go to the link. The system has classified this, said it's a high. That means that it's either there is some username or password which is hidden inside it, right? The report will have that data. You can see when it was posted, when did we acquire it. You can download the link, etc., right? Now, if you want to work on it, you can mark it for issue tracking. You can request a takedown, so you can take the help of our team to help you to reach out to the author here and try to see if we can take it down, right? So now think about it. Here you were till about 2 months ago, some data leaked on GitHub, and you frankly had no system, no way to figure out what to do with it, right? Now you have a proper system using which you can take care of it. And this is just one example, right? Let's look at another example. Let's look at a fake social media page, for example. This is another big problem hitting everyone. So, okay, let's look at this. This is a fake which has been posted by someone on Twitter, right? So if you look at this, why has this? So this has been classified as a high threat, right? Source is Twitter. There's a page, and this is the reason it has been classified: impersonation. So if you look at this, there's some garbage data here, and then yeah, at the bottom there's this number. So someone is saying that Kotak Mahindra Bank customer care helpline number is this, which is false. This is not the number, right? So this is another example. Now, there's nothing you can do internal within the company to address these kind of risks, right? So yeah, I can give more examples, but Rishi, I hope that kind of helped. And so for example, like this, there are many issues, right? You can for example look at app misconfigurations. So you can see all your applications, what all is wrong. You have got data breaches, so you can look at things like credential leaks. You can put in the names of your VIP users. So for example, these are all leaked API keys, if you can see, right? Yeah, the different people, different names, their API keys, their passwords, and so on. You can monitor the dark web, so you can look at discussions. What are the discussions happening? Is anyone trying to trade your data? If you're a bank, is anyone trying to sell your debit cards or credit cards anywhere on the dark web, for example? So all those kind of things. Anything outside to you can kind of monitor.
Okay, great. Thanks, Saurabh. I think I was also quite intently following the demo, and I think what I could understand from this is that it's a fairly straightforward and easy to use tool, right? It gives a lot of power to the different stakeholders within the customer organization. So this is not something that only the technical people would be able to handle. This is something that probably even the the CISO, the CXO, even the CEO can take a quick look at and try and figure out what's going on out there. And in the same league, it also becomes easier for the team, the security team, cybersecurity team, to showcase this thing to the top management, and make sure that there is a continuous buy-in from them, right? Because obviously when it comes to security, there needs to be a lot of buy-in from the top. So a lot of those things that you showed were really cool in terms of how quickly it could be filtered, how quickly you could put in domain names or IP addresses, and the different navigations that you had, right, to move from through the different areas of the particular issue, right? I mean, if you want to, and one particular thing I really liked was on the fact that you can request for a takedown from then and there itself, right? I mean, there's no separate process, or there's no separate offline method to do that. So something is wrong, you go there and immediately you take a response, or you take an action from there itself. So that's really cool, and that's giving a lot of power to the users, right? So thanks for that. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions from the audience, and we will definitely come to that in a while. But before that, I just wanted to have or ask you one final question, which is that earlier you spoke about the global attacks, the large-scale data leaks that have happened. What is your experience in the India market? What kind of customers do you have in the India market, and what are the use cases that you've solved for them? Can you share maybe a few stories that you've actually solved? I saw some names out there. Obviously, there's, like you said, those are probably dummy names, and this is just test data. But what is your real experience with some of the customers?
Sure. No, that's a good question. Good you brought it up. So, so this is a quick snapshot view of some of our customers. This is also a little dated. We are I hate to say it, but thanks to COVID and the resultant spike in cyber activity, we have been adding almost 3 to 4 customers every month for the last 6 months. So this list has significantly expanded. So a couple of things which become obvious when you look at it, right? So ones in the middle are pretty much all the large banks and financial services companies in India. A lot of insurers, a lot of banks. We have got HDFC, Axis, ICICI, Kotak Bank. We have got NPCI. So in fact, I'll talk about NPCI, a very interesting case study. Then on the right side, we have got pretty much anyone who has got a lot to lose because of a cyber breach. So think about an Ola. Or think about Gojek. Gojek is a great example. Gojek is like the Ola in Indonesia, right? So they came to us because their drivers were kind of collaborating and conspiring against the Gojek servers on a messaging platform called Telegram. So Telegram is like WhatsApp, right? But it's a different messaging app. And so we started monitoring that. And now when we find that a lot of the bad guys have actually moved from the dark web to Telegram. So frankly, Telegram is what you should really be monitoring if you want to cover this space, right? Similarly, thanks to the whole vaccine race for COVID, the interest has spiked from pharma companies. So we have Dr. Reddy's, Sun Pharma, and so on. Similarly, retail scams, right? Decathlon, for example, or Ooredoo. Ooredoo is one of the largest telecom providers in Middle East. Olam is one of the largest agricultural majors out of Singapore. These are all examples of companies who we work with. Now, let me talk a little bit about some specific use cases, right? So, for example, NPCI. A few months back, when we had the Pulwama attack, right? Suddenly there was a spike in fake UPI IDs which scammers were creating and started tweeting about that, hey, you want to send money to the soldiers? This is the UPI ID. And there were like 1,500 plus fake UPI IDs floating, and there was one real and the remaining 1,499 were fake. So we were the ones who helped NPCI very quickly identify those fake ones and take them down, right? So that was a very, very interesting time. Now, in fact, now if you look at it, probably NPCI is one of our largest customers, right? Then another bank, right? When they came to us, if you had a credit card from that bank and you lost that credit card, what would you do? Let's say I have a credit card, I lose it, I'll go to the Google and try to search for a customer care number where I can call in and report that I lost a credit card, right? Well, the first 20 results on Google, when you search for that company's customer care number, were all fake. You call any of them, they'll pretend to be that bank's customer care number, take all the details, ask you for an OTP or something like that, and a few minutes later, your account is cleaned out, right? Again, think back. Anything to do with the environment? No. Anything to do with the infrastructure? No. It's all out there. But your customers are still suffering. Think about your reputation, right? I already talked about the Ola one. Yeah, another big one in India is hiring scams. So, for example, some of the largest service providers, IT service companies in India, they work with us because people out fake hiring ads, job in their name. In fact, they will put on a fake ad. They will do the whole process of interview and everything, and at the end of which they'll take some money along the way. I need 1,500 for a medical test, 1,000 rupees for insurance, and they'll kind of string along the candidate, and in the end they'll vanish, right? And that candidate will land up on the front door of that large company, looking for a job as on his first day, and then the scam will get uncovered, right? So much of that happening. We are VIP scams. We have seen so many instances of fake Twitter profiles being set up and people making all kinds of statements from there on behalf of a specific celebrity, right, or a VIP. I'll give you another great example, right? While it's not on this list, when I tell you, you'll know why. It's for obvious reasons. Companies ask me, why do we need to help protect the IDs of our board members? So almost every company, there are about thousands of publicly listed companies in India, right? And every listed company needs to have a board of directors. So the board of directors meets every 3 months, every quarter, or whatever the cycle is. At the end of which, he has to send that minutes of the meeting to every board member. Now that minutes of the meeting, now the email ID it goes to is a personal email ID of that board member, right? So recently we had a situation wherein for one of our customers, it just so happened that their board member was also known to us, right? So he was a well-wisher of our company as well. So when we told him that this hasn't happened, your Yahoo email ID credential has been leaked. Please change it. So he said, okay, I will change it, but why are you monitoring it? I don't even use that email ID. But then we told him that, okay, you don't use it, but that is the reset email ID for your Twitter account. What if someone were to hijack your Twitter account, right, and just post from there that the company you're on the board of directors of, that company has had governance issues. That's it. And they can make a boatload of money on the stock market, right? And you'll never be able to kind of recover your reputation. So those kind of use cases, I mean, it's the ingenuity of criminals is amazing. We all know that. But yeah, so I'm sorry I took too much time, but yeah, I hope I gave you some idea, Rishi, of how these things can be weaponized and how we have helped our customers.
Yeah, no, I mean, please, sort of, if you feel like continuing, we'll be more than happy, because those were some really, really interesting case studies, right? And um, I'm sure a lot of the members in the audience would actually have felt one or two issues out of that in their careers as well, in their organizations as well, right? So if you have a few more to share, we are more than happy
Sure.
to do. Yeah.
Let me give you another one, which is like so
Yeah.
mundane. This was a company, a client of ours. So someone was putting up a so this is a company. This is a now let me see what I can reveal. This is a company which has thousands of franchisees all over India, right? Now someone had set up a website where they were saying they were offering a franchisee, right, of that same company. They use their logo, they put up everything, logo, menu, all the digital assets were being used. And that guy actually was selling franchisees, fake franchisees of our client, right? So another great, it is not even it's not even that anyone is stealing your data. It's not a password, it's not a credential, it's nothing. It's just that someone is selling your fake franchisees, right? Another example I'll give you. This was a retailer. They have a in-house brand which is pretty famous. I won't be surprised if a lot of the people in this call are using that brand at home. And someone was selling fake versions of that brand on various websites, right? And so this is a very famous brand. And now this has nothing to do with security, but this was causing them a lot of damage in terms of lost sales as well as reputation, because the products which that scammer was selling were low quality. People were buying it and then they were coming and screaming at this company saying that your products are crap, but it's not their products, it was a fake product, right? So yeah, so this way there are like, yeah, so many use. I'd love to keep going on and on. Every day is a new story in our business, right?
Sure, absolutely. So the problems that you help solve are not limited. In fact, I think the technical aspects of problems are far lesser than the actual business problems, right? Most of the cases that you mentioned were about business related issues, like the UPI IDs, or the scam that you just spoke about, or the hiring scam. These are the ones that actually are directly responsible for a loss of revenue, a loss of brand value, and impacts the business in a direct manner, even for that matter from a compliance standpoint, right? Great. I mean, that's thank you so much for that. I think that was extremely insightful, and I think we are really doing good on time, so thanks for that as well. So with that, I would want to take a pause for both of us. I think we've been speaking for the better part of the hour now. So both of us, I would want to take a pause, and at least me for sure, and open the Q&A session to the audience. And Ritesh, if you could let us know if you've had a few questions from the audience yet, and what are those questions, then either me or Saurabh can help answer those questions.
Uh, Thanks, Rishikesh. Yes, we have a couple of questions with us. The first question is, there are so many such companies. How are you different? This is one question by the user.
Yeah, Saurabh, you want to take that?
Okay. Sure, I can take that. No, I think that's a great question. I think see, first of all, guys, it's not as if when we started doing it, we are the only company who does it, right? This was something large companies especially, were doing for many years. The question is, how were they doing it? A lot of times they were doing it by having an army of people, right? So they would have an army of people to kind of constantly search the dark web or various sources for this. What are the challenge in that approach? The challenge is, let's say even if you have 5 people whose only job 24/7 is to do these searches, what will they do? They'll probably, for one company, they will have maybe 5-10 watchwords, right? They'll go across maybe 50 different sources every day. So that's 10 watchwords into 50 sources. That's 500 searches they would do. And they would analyze all the results and data and report whatever they can find. The challenge is coverage. When you look at something like XVigil, for one of the banks in India, and it's not even the largest bank, we have 5,000 keywords. and we are looking around across millions of sources. So compare that to 500 searches versus 5,000 into million. It's like billions of searches, right? Point number one. Point number two is, how do you analyze all that data? Remember I showed you that GitHub data leak, right? Now a typical GitHub repository is anywhere between maybe 100 files, right? So that's about maybe 10,000 to a million lines of code. How does a human go through all of that and figure out if who does it belong to, first of all? Second, is it critical? So does it have an application password or an API key in it? Third, if it does, then is it like some hackathon code which the company does not care, which is a false alarm, or is it a actual something which the company cares about? If you ask me, that is exactly what the platform which we have built, right? That's the machine learning, that's the algorithms which we have built over the years which allow you to do that. And because of this plan, so for example, we started back in 2015. For the first 2.5 years, we had 0 customers because we were not even selling our product, we were just building it. We sold our first customer in 2000, and even now I have got almost a 70 people team which is just focused on building this product. So that machine learning product based approach is probably one of the biggest differentiators. How does it help the customer? First of all, of course, the coverage, turnaround time, how quickly can you detect alerts. Third is scalability. So tomorrow, if I detect some new kind of scam, I don't have to invest in one person for each customer. I just put it on the platform and it's just available to all my customers, right? Deployment time, you give me a name, we'll go live in 30 minutes, right? So yeah, those are some of the key differentiators, I would say, from what customers have been doing till now. Thanks for the question, Ritesh.
Sure. We have another question. It's a little longer one because I'll read the narrative edges. As we see, security start with monitoring and detection, and organization needs people, product, and process. But many small-scale enterprise find it difficult to allocate investment in product and people, and many times it is parked aside. How do we ensure we have right product and right people with minimum investment, as we see a lot of product coming in market as security products?
Okay. So you want to take a shot at that, Rishi, or
you can go ahead.
Okay. No, thanks. That's a great question, and you know what? I face that question with every customer of mine. Every customer, even some of the largest names you saw there. There's probably we have seen places where it's a huge company and the CISO has a one-person team, only one person in his team, right? So yeah, they have the same challenge. How do you allocate resources? I think one of the ways in which at least we help mitigate this, end of the day, what is it that we are doing? What is it that we are replacing? We are replacing a boatload of people at the client side. We are replacing people our customers would have needed to search, to analyze, to triage the things, as well as the take down the remediation part, right? And so that I would say the entire USP of our platform is exactly there. But then we go a step further. So in fact, let me see if I have a slide on that. Yeah, let me see. No, I don't have a slide, but I can talk about it. So for example, when you look at this, right, we provide, first of all, is the detect and report, as you rightly said, which is our core business. Then we have the takedowns. So we do takedowns of all kinds of stuff, social media related, brand related, reputation related. But then what about the next step? If you, let's say there is some persistent guy who's coming after you, like the franchisee guy I talked about, right, who's selling fake franchisees. You take down one of his websites, he'll come up with another one tomorrow. You take down the second one, he'll come up with the third one tomorrow. How do you really stop that person? If you really ask me, the only way is to kind of dig a little deeper and do a little research and try to kind of get close to identifying the person. You may or may not identify, most of the times you're not able to. But as you get closer, as the heat increases on that person, believe me, that is the best way to make that person back off. That's when that person, that actor will realize, okay, this company is no longer a soft target. They will come after me. And if they find me, they will report me to the police. And they have someone who's actively hunting me. Let me find some other target, right? And those are the services we also provide. So it's not just detect and report, we have takedowns. And then we have research services as well, right? So the idea behind all of this is to answer the question, right? If we are reporting something and the client does not have anyone to act on it, well, we can do that as well, to answer your question. And if you compare on the cost front, if you were to compare that to the cost of having a similar setup in-house, yeah, I mean, that's not even a question, right? We all know it will be prohibitively expensive to set up a dedicated team for this.
Yeah, and to add to that, Saurabh, also what I feel is that there are actually a number of companies out there in multiple areas of cybersecurity, and I think the challenge the person who asked the question, I'm not sure who asked the question, was probably that how does one choose between those companies, right? So I think that's where capabilities like using artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities, like what you do, come into picture, and that is where the customers need to evaluate these solutions from that perspective. That what is the ease of use of using that particular solution? Am I going to buy that solution and then it's going to get relegated to the closet? Okay. If I use the tool, is it going to be easy to use or difficult to use? Is it going to do a lot of things automated manner, and is it going to do things end to end, right? Like you mentioned, it's not just about the detect part, but it's also about taking the action on it, right? So I think if I were to add to what you said, these two or three things in terms of the end-to-end nature of the solution, leveraging AI and ML capabilities, and the ease of use. These are three things additionally that one should be looking at, because these also help you manage things with a very thin team. If you have a single person CISO, or even if you have a proper team, but you want to optimize the efforts that the team puts in, then these are the things that one needs to look at. Oh, and yes, if before I forget, one very important thing obviously is that it needs to not ask you of any large investment. Okay. So for that matter, in the kind of OpEx services that we offer and the XVigil platform that is there is no large scale investment that is required. It's a pay-per-use solution, right? So it can grow as per the requirements tomorrow. It can scale down as per the requirements, as required. And then there is no real lock-in in that, right? So one retains the flexibility to, or the choice to move out of that without losing too much of an investment. Yeah. So Ritesh, do we have further questions?
I have two more questions. So, Mr. Satyajit Rathi want to understand NPCI case study again. Typically the scope and what was the problem definition, and how did CloudSec addressed it? And after that, I have one other question which I'll come later.
Sure. So there are two or three things, right? Broadly, I can share some details. I hope you understand, not all. But the core problem was that there was a boatload of Twitter tweets, which were going out. Not only tweets, it was on tweets, it was on YouTube, it was everywhere, wherein people had set up some UPI IDs and they were saying that this belongs to the soldiers, right? So the question was, how do you monitor? Now, setting up a UPI ID it's not a crime, right? However, pretending that it belongs to a soldier, that's a fraud. So how do you detect these? Now, detection is one part, right? You can keep detecting it and they'll keep coming up again and again and again. How do you correlate between all of these? That, okay, these 20 UPI IDs are all being tweeted by the same Twitter user, right? So there's a good chance it's the same actor or group of actors who are behind that, right? That correlation. So for example, let me show you another thing, right? Where is that slide? Yeah, okay. If you look at this, right? Now, in this particular use case, I'll tell you what was relevant. Of course, first part was a collection of data. How do you collect all the data? How do you crawl the data from all those sources, figure out who's talking about the soldiers or payment to soldiers? What are the watchwords? So we were able to configure those specific watchwords. And then how do you clean and classify the data? So there was so much of noise. There was someone who was just randomly saying, I want to help soldiers, right? Now that's not a fraud, right? Or someone is just generally asking the question, how do I give money, send money to soldiers? Now that's not a fraud. That's something we have to filter out in our filtration, right? So that's the second part. So how do you remove all the noise? The third part was, how do you correlate it between the different things? How do you recognize patterns? I would say this was probably the most important in this particular use case, right? And then figure out who was actually trying to scam it. So there was obviously only one true one, and the others were all various options. But some of them were credible also. Some of them were collecting it from their employees or other sources, and then again passing it along to the relevant authorities as well, right? And then eventually, of the hundreds of those fake handles, etc., which we were identifying, how do we figure out which are the ones you should focus on first? So for example, if there is like a mega scammer who has got hundreds of handles and thousands of Twitter handles, that means that person has the whole infrastructure to execute it, right? So those kind of things. So how do you handle that? So I hope, by the way, I know we have limited time, and I would love to, I would love to have a one-on-one session, explain this, give a very specific demo. So yeah, please feel free to reach out separately. Would love to explain in more detail.
Sure, thank you. This is another question, and the last one I have in my list. How do you handle false positive? This is also the question by one of the attendees.
Okay. Yeah. So now that's an interesting question, right? This is false positive. Anyway, anytime you talk about machine learning or AI, false positive is the biggest concern. So see, let me put it this way, right? We are not really a threat intelligence company. In the sense, it's not as if we are it's not like we are going to the internet and searching all the bad news, putting it into a newspaper and giving it to all the customers, and then the customers then have to read the entire newspaper and figure out, sorry, which are the two sentences which are applicable to them, right? And I mean, one way to look at it is, in the newspaper, if only two sentences are applicable to you, then the rest of the newspaper is a false positive, right? Why did you even spend time looking at it? And frankly, that was the challenge which we set out to solve. The way we do it, if you look at it, it is more like a search for your assets. So we are searching all these sources with your brand names, with your company name, with your domain name, with your IP address, with your web app name as the search word. So anything which you see on the dashboard is there because it matched one of your search words, right? And that refinement of the correct watchword is something we do with the customers in the first 4 weeks or 2 to 4 weeks, right? So for example, one of our customers is, let's say, Grab taxi. Now, Grab is such a common English word. If you were to use it on internet, it'll kind of create so much of false positive. So then we were able to sit with them and kind of, refine that word. Once we have done it, then everything you are seeing on your dashboard is there because it matched one of the keywords. So it's not, so frankly, none of it is a false positive, so to say. And now the only place where it can be a false positive is, and which I would be the first one to admit, is sometimes our machine learning might classify something as a medium priority, but you might come back and say, boss, this is high priority, right? This is a big deal for me. In which case, if you look at the platform itself, right, powerful feature. So, for example, any alert which you see here, just 1 second. Yeah, there you go. So any alert which you see here, right, you can mark it as a threat or mark it as a non-threat. Now, this is a very powerful feature. This means that the users who are using it, they can say, hey, I will mark it as a threat and it should be a medium threat, or it should be a low threat, or I'll mark it as a non-threat. This is constantly training our machine learning system so that the next time it does not make the same mistake. And this combination of things. So first of all, we are searching and presenting only stuff which is relevant to you. Second, this user input is what allows us to make sure that what the customer sees is to a large extent, there are very little false positives. So I hope I answered the question, but yeah, happy to again double click on it as required as well. Back to you, Ritesh.
Sure, thank you. So yes, these were the questions I had till now. So Rishikesh, would you want to add something on the points which Saurabh touched upon?
I think he covered it so well. I really don't want to, kind of say something that will. Uh, I think that I think he covered it really well. And I was really happy to see those kind of questions coming in, because those are the real relevant issues we see with customers, and even Cloud6 sees with their customers day in and day out. So I was really happy that all of those questions were asked.
Sure.
No, same here, same here. I mean, you guys kept us on our toes. So great questions.
Yeah, I think from the questions perspective, we are done. So with this, I think we are definitely bang on time. We were committed to finish the session at 4 o'clock, and we are bang at. We just have 2 minutes to go as we reach to 4. So I think we are the session for audience have been very, very insightful, and the kind of questions which have really come up actually answers how insightful the session is. So I thank you, our speakers, for insightful sessions, and thank you, audience, for making it a very, very lively and exciting session. With this, we come to the end of the webinar, and so there is one last announcement, but very important one, which we would want to make. Uh, Cloud6 is offering free trials and POC. So if you want to register for the same, please share your interest at marketing@netmagicsolutions.com. Technical expert from Cloud6 will reach out to you and discuss your requirement and take it forward from there. So we'll hope to receive your interest, as many as possible, and we'll get in touch with you. So once again, thank you so very much, speakers. Thank you so very much for audience, and we'll see you soon. Have a very, very good evening and great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritesh. Thank you, Saurabh, and thank you everyone for joining this. Have a good day ahead.